You've been a firefighter for a long time, and you've worn a lot of different hats. At what point did you decide that firefighterclosecalls.com was something that the industry needed? And what set you on the path?
So what set me on the path was in the 70s, I was a firefighter in Long Island, and a neighboring department had a captain killed in the line of duty. They were responding to a van on fire, and a compressed cylinder in the van exploded and literally decapitated the captain. And it struck me as a young fire, and that was during a period of time we had two firefighters killed at a synagogue. We had two firefighters killed, and this was all in Nassau County. Two firefighters killed at a swimming pool supply shop. A fire captain was killed when his apparatus crashed into the back of another. And what really struck me in each of these cases, not only was it sad, what really struck me is that the attitude was, hey, this is part of the job. In other words, this is a risky job. And as a young kid, I learned early, you have two ears and one mouth, use your ears and shut up. So at that stage, I was only now getting ready to become a lieutenant. So I really didn't have much opportunity to speak up. But it just kept striking me that every time we go to a funeral, it's part of the job. It's going to happen. And I get that, but it really, to answer your question, it resonated with me. Well, maybe it doesn't always have to happen. And back then, you would never question that. You would never question that, ever. Not like today when we talk about these things. But that was kind of a big deal. So the next step was there was an incident in Phoenix where a firefighter was killed in the line of duty. And I'd become friends with Chief Brunacini over the years. And what he did was pretty shocking. So this is like the next bridge to answer your question, was he came right out. This is what happened. This is what we did wrong. This is what we would do differently. This is how we can improve. And his intent was to share that with everybody so we learn. So a lot of fire chiefs, whoa, what are you, crazy? You're going to get sued? The attorneys are going to bring, he says, we're going to get sued anyway. The attorneys are going to come in anyway. So why don't we what are we not going to tell the truth if we go to court? So that really, I can tell you the moment that and where that happened, that discussion with him and we were at an IFC conference, and that, man, did that click. So bring around 1996, 7, something like that, I got my first computer. So previous to that, I was writing articles and sharing incidents with people, but in a much, restricted scale because we didn't have the internet. So I had an AOL account, and so I would start searching for incidents. And when they'd happen, I'd share with friends of mine. And this friend added to that friend, and that friend added to this friend and said, could you add on to the list? And anyway, long story short, that's where the secret list came from. And it was named the secret list. Originally, I would just put in the subject line, firefighter struck by car. So as the list started to grow, I figured out you could put things in a BCC column, blind carbon copy, so that you wouldn't see who else is on that list. So one day somebody said, who's on the list? I said, it's a secret. I don't know what the hell. I was just screwing with them, right? And after that, every time I sent an email about that, I put the secret list on it. And there's no, believe me, there wasn't 15 people sitting in a think tank coming up with this stuff. This was just ideas that we just started applying. So then I started doing a lot of on-the-road stuff for a group called Command School. There's myself, Bruno, Dennis Rubin, Carl Holmes, Gordon Graham, et cetera. And Gordon and I became really good friends. And he said to me, why don't you have a website? Well, at the time, I didn't have the money or the time. He said, well, when you have time, I'll provide the money. So I gave that a lot of thought and thought, this is a heck of an opportunity to be able to start sharing this kind of stuff. And so I reached back out to him, and we reached out to a company called firecompanies.com. We're based out of Pennsylvania, run by a number of firefighters. And I said, hey, I need some help building a website. And that's the history. And we're 20-something years into it now. And the secret list has hundreds of thousands of subscribers from all over the world. And Firefighter Close Calls, is pretty big. We're pretty proud of it. So that's the story. That's how it built up. As we got busier and busier, I really needed help. A firefighter, a chief officer out of Indiana, Brian Kazmierzak, I did some teaching for them. And actually, it was funny. I went to do a class for them, and I brought 3 bins of VHS tapes with me. That's how I used to teach back in the day. And I would have my tapes all wound right to the right spot and play this and that. And Kaz came up
like
to me
a
and
DJ.
goes, he said, there's an easier way to do this. I'm like, I don't know how to do it. He says, so anyway, long story short, he taught me about computers and all that. And
Very cool.
and he now is really our director of operations. He's an active fire officer in Indiana, Michigan area. Over time, as we started to expand the site, we would pick people that were experts in their field or had a great passion for a certain, like we've got communications, we've got personal survival, which is mental health and behavioral health. We've got auto accidents, highway, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's how it got built up. And nobody makes any money. We accept no advertising. We accept no sponsorships. Gordon pays the bills. And that allows us to say whatever the hell we want. And sometimes, we're not worried about, if Acme Fire Truck screws up, we can write about Acme Fire Truck because they're not one of our sponsors. And I've seen, I sit on most of the advisory boards and stuff. I've seen where some of the other media organizations out there, and these are wonderful people, I'm affiliated with them all, sometimes have to be careful because they don't want to lose a sponsorship. We don't have that. We don't deal with that. So anyway, that's in a nutshell, the story of firefighter close calls and the secret list.